Hello and welcome to Dead Letter Movie Chat, episode 26,
26.
recorded October 26th, 2015. I'm Tim,
I'm Andrew.
and we're talking tonight about the new Guillermo del Toro movie Crimson Peak, starring Mia Wasikowska. Wasikowska.
Wasikowski.
Wasikowska.
Wasikowska. We just learned how to pronounce her name and we just messed it up. Oh,
Sorry, Mia.
sorry, Mia.
Also, Tom Hiddleston and Jessica Chastain. So this is a sort of gothic Victorian romance horror movie in which there are ghosts, but Mr. Del Toro has oddly described as being not a horror movie.
But a gothic romance, which it is. He's not wrong.
It is, but it still feels to me like that is part of the movie. But it's also a horror movie. It's both things.
Yeah, I'm on the fence. It kind of I don't think it's like if this movie came out in the '60s, it would be a horror film. If it came out in the '40s, it might not have, because I kept thinking of Vincent Price's House of Seven Gables when I was watching Nathaniel Hawthorne adaptation from the '40s, and this has a similar feel to it. There's no ghosts in that movie, but I mean that's not really a horror film, but it definitely feels spooky. There's also Jane Eyre is kind of like that as well. Not really horror, but it's gothic and spooky. Wuthering Heights has similar feelings.
And definitely similar themes as well. I don't want to synopsize the movie too much here. Basically, if you're into this sort of movie, you'll probably already know if it's something you're interested in seeing, and kind of the direction that it's going to go after the initial setup in the first couple of scenes.
Pretty much.
So yeah, I don't want to spoil it too much for anybody who might be interested in seeing it. I'm not going to warn you off. There are plenty of people this is not going to be their cup of tea.
No.
But yeah, my problems with this movie are that it feels too precious about itself. It seems to hold itself in higher regard than it actually earns with the audience. It definitely aspires to a lot more, and it is beautifully shot. The essence of the story is okay. It's good and interesting as a story, and there's some good performances by really a pretty small cast. Some supporting players who are really barely there, including Charlie Hunnam. So I just feel like this movie was aiming to be something, decided that it got there, but didn't actually. But since it thought it had, it just sort of stopped.
Yeah, and I kind of feel similarly. Actually, Tim and I had to discuss how we felt about this movie, because we were like, it doesn't suck that much, but we don't know exactly what sucks about this movie.
Yeah, there are things I can't quite put my finger on. There's some little things that kind of bothered me, but didn't detract from the movie as a whole necessarily. A couple of little filmic devices that were a little too cute.
And a little overused as well.
But didn't really harm the narrative or the performances. So,
I think the biggest problem for me is the fact that I think the way I explained it to Tim was I feel like it's Guillermo del Toro wanted to make a gothic romance, which he did, but he wanted to make a Laurence Olivier caliber gothic romance, but instead made a Vincent Price one. Now, mind you, I love both of those guys. I love both of those guys a lot. I love Vincent Price. He's one of my favorite actors ever, but he's not Laurence Olivier. And that's kind of where it kind of, and that's sort of what you were saying, that it thinks it's this Olivier movie when it's still like a Vincent Price Poe movie.
It's definitely reaching past the level of a Vincent Price sort of Edgar Allan Poe kind of thing. There are lots of those things in this movie as well. Lots of the same kind of themes, the same kinds of horror and gothic romance. That's all here too, but I feel like there's no real solid, well-defined middle ground in between Price and
No,
Olivier. That's
yeah,
sort
there
of a
really
no
isn't.
man's land. It's sort of limbo, and this sort of lands in the middle of this just mire. There's it. It's not quite the cheesy Vincent Price stuff. It definitely is aspiring to more, but it doesn't get there either.
I don't know.
So
I feel like we're trying. He's trying to make Rebecca, but we end up with House of Usher. Um,
yeah,
a
and
more like maybe not a Roger Corman directed House of Usher, but like a, but still it's House of Usher. No offense, Roger. But I mean, like and you're right. It's in a middle ground. Because it's Tom Hiddleston is he's not Vincent Price in this. He's definitely trying to be Laurence Olivier. And I don't mean this like literally trying to do this. I am putting this in like levels of acting merit, I guess.
yeah,
And
because Hiddleston is a classically trained actor, and
yeah,
he's known for some of that kind of stuff. He's done some of the the heavy Shakespearean stuff, in addition to being Loki in the Marvel universe,
right.
which he's really good at. But I mean, that's much more comic book superhero cheesy chewing the scenery stuff.
Something
So
else Vincent Price would have done.
he's got range. He can
Yeah,
do it. But and this is a fine performance from all three
everybody.
of the principal players. But nothing's really great. Nothing just makes me sit up and say wow and just grabs hold of me.
Mhm.
Um,
Well, and
the
I've
yeah
seen everything before. I mean, like like I knew everything that was going to happen. And that might just be because I grew up on these gothic movies. Like I mean, like I was saying, we got House of Usher in there, we got Rebecca in there, we got Anne Radcliffe stuff in there. We have I didn't realize this until just a moment ago, but there's definitely some Age of Innocence stuff in there as well.
yeah
There's, I mean, like it's if the fact that I maybe too versed in this may have hurt it more, and maybe if I didn't ever watch those movies, this would be novel to me. But I knew everything that was going to happen, and so that kind of ruined it for me a little bit.
yeah and see I didn't grow up with that kind of material, and I still was not really surprised by anything that happened in this movie. I mean, there were a couple of moments that's that's really uncomfortable, but it wasn't really new or terribly shocking to the average moviegoer.
Hmm.
I don't feel so. Yeah, the movie looked absolutely beautiful. It was
Yeah,
it
it
was
looks really good.
gorgeous. Even the bloody horrific bits were
Mm.
really really beautiful. It didn't overuse the gore
No,
for
no.
scares and horror. There are things that happen in front of you, but they're just outside of frame. So it's not overdone or overwrought as far as that goes.
I was a
So
little surprised it was R rated
yeah,
sometimes. I mean,
there,
I
there,
get
there
it.
were, yeah, I
I
had a couple of those
understand,
moments
but
too, where it's, did this
yeah,
need to be an R? What?
yeah, that's the
Oh,
thing.
yeah,
Like,
that right there,
yeah,
that'll do it. Um, so yeah, all that said, yeah, it tries hard, but not nearly hard enough to get where it's going. So it ends up not quite succeeding as anything, but it doesn't really fail either. I'm going to give the movie a flat C.
hmm the I think the same way. Like it's I was kind of like gonna give it a C plus, but the more I think about it, the more I talk about it, the more I just want to be like it's just like it's just like it tries to it had like if I was going to say here is the rubric for making a gothic romance film, it hits all the things, it just doesn't do it very well. It's like the check minus of like assignments, so I think I'm just going to give it a flat C as well. I feel like this must be a companion film to Del Toro's earlier film, The Devil's Backbone, because the ghosts in both of these movies look exactly the same. Now, I know that, because a lot of Tim Burton movies look about the same, and they're not necessarily related to each other, but these are so similar, it's hard not to connect them. So,
Yeah, yeah.
so I'm going to say that if you want to watch a gothic Del Toro movie, go rent The Devil's Backbone instead. But this isn't a bad way to waste your time, and it's a good October movie if you need something for Halloween.
And my personal feeling is that this will be more interesting a couple of years down the road